Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's David Palmer, Leo King, and welcome to Deep Astrology, another edition of going deeper into what's going on in the universe with the planets, with the cosmos, with this universe, and going layer by layer, and especially on this week of October the 23rd through, we're going to be going into the 29th of 2018. Welcome to Scorpio season. So for all the Scorpios out there, happy birthday. But what a time to enter a Scorpio season. In all my years of looking at astrology, there has been in every Scorpio season something going on. And so this Scorpio season seems to be the most heightened aspect we will see in a long time. So you will remember this Scorpio season, this next 30-day transit of the sun through Scorpio, more than any of the other Scorpio seasons that we will have for years to come. That's because we will not, after this Scorpio season, have this much energy happen in Scorpio for a long time. Really good news for the Scorpios, really good news for all of us as we are going through the deepest transformations of our life. And if you look at the last 6 years since Saturn entered into Scorpio, which happened on October the 6th of 2012, and if you go to today and where you're at in your life, you know, this has really been a 6-year cycle that has really been about up and down transformation, you know, looking at the highest and the lowest parts of yourself. And here we are trying to understand who we truly are in the depths of our soul, who we really are in our true form of our essence, and our essence of our edge, our essence of our desires, our essence of the deepest, real, raw, authentic self. And you know, we start this week off with the sun entering Scorpio in an exact opposition to Uranus and Taurus. Now, this is something that we are not used to unless you were around during the time of the 1930s. So, for most of us, we don't know what this feels like. This is a new version of life. This is us looking at that cross-pollination between Taurus and Scorpio. You know, whether you call that life or death, whether you call that, you know, having or desiring, you know, there is that opposition. Scorpio is about that internal need and want of emotional desire and whatever we can do to gain it or seduce it or even in the darker forms manipulate it. Where Taurus is all about whether we have it or not, what we have to do to create it, what we have to do to build it, and whether we're too stubborn to let it go, or more importantly, are we beautiful in being able to see our value in ourselves and manifest it. But both these energies are very odd already because the sun and Uranus are always the opposite forms of each other. Because the sun, of course, being ruled by Leo, the Uranus element being ruled by Aquarius, these are opposite energies, and we are in a north and south node in Leo and Aquarius at their final call here over the next couple weeks. So there is this weird element as well that these nodes are squaring the Sun and Uranus opposition. And so we are in this grand fixed cross, and with all this kind of destiny energy and pointing towards what our heart, our connection, what we need to rise above to build in a better life that meets with our desires at the same time. And that's a very complicated equation as we come into this week. Complicating equations are the best way to put things. But whenever we come into complications, I always feel like simplicity truly is the answer. And that might sound difficult at a time in this life where things might feel off. When the sun opposes Uranus, we do feel like we are at odds with what we are trying to understand consciously, and some very calculated and really random, you know, ways of looking at our life and how to understand our form of what we're doing, and especially because this is in Scorpio, how we're going to get what we really want 100%, while at the same time with Uranus having to figure out how to still maintain, still keep self-worth, still keep a beautiful kind of life together without destroying everything and keeping everything together. Now with the squares to the nodes, you know, this is what's interesting. Uranus is in its fall position. The south node is in Aquarius. So, in order for us to have or to maintain certain things in our life right now, this Uranian South Node Aquarian energy with this in Taurus and South Node in Aquarius is, maybe we have to find new ways that definitely maybe aren't so much as fixable, but rising to a higher calling. That's what Uranus is about, which is about moving to a higher place. Uranus is the ruler of the heavens, or at least the closest to the heavens that we can get, and understanding. That's what Uranus is understanding by being so high up in the air and understanding this. But when it's in Taurus, it's at fall position because it has such a hard time, because literally it's like trying to rebel against physical, concreted values and structures and self-worth and things that we hold on to. It's hard to let go of things that we are holding on to. So there are things in our life that we are letting go, and they're very deeply connected to our shadow side, our desires, and while at the same time being able right now to focus with this North Node in Leo and the Sun in Scorpio to attain our true desire and edge by making sure that we also have to realize that there is a part of our lives that we do have to let go that's difficult, that we have valued, that might not be part of the most highest quality anymore in our lives. It's almost like there's a part of ourselves that we are having to let go of fully in order to come into a higher version of ourselves while still meeting this very deep expectation of edge, desire, thirst, quench, sexual desire, whatever you want to call it. There's a need for all these to try and find a way to come together. Now, of course, everybody wants to know about the big full moon. The full moon's happening on Wednesday. It's going to be a big full moon because the moon is in Taurus. It's exaltation, where it loves to be. But when the moon, of course, is on top of Uranus, whoa, okay, the moon, where it likes to be stable in Taurus and in the Garden of Eden, is making an opposition to the Sun in Scorpio down in the underworld, where Venus is retrograding and getting ready this week to cross over. And so this is a major look, and especially this full moon is exactly square the nodes. Oh my gosh, so we have 5 aspects here, all in this big grand cross. And this grand cross full moon is definitely this emotional release and disconnection to a better world, and to also letting go of things that are just not serving our better lives anymore. But this is a Sun in Scorpio, and this is one where this full moon is bringing up this understanding of truth, of rawness, like, hey, this is who I am. This is my authenticity. How can I build that in my life? How can that actually be created? And with Uranus there are some really random and some really crazy equations in how we have to figure all this out. But you've got to remember as well, the moon and Uranus are really not really good friends, okay? Especially in Taurus, because the moon loves Taurus and Uranus does not like Taurus. So, and the moon and Uranus are totally different, right? The moon wants to hold on and nurture and take care, whereas Uranus, of course, wants to help, but wants to help one person and move on to the next person. Won't sit there and go through your whole flu with you, or go through a whole entire, deep sickness with you, right, for months or years. Whereas Uranus is the water bearer that goes, I got to keep moving forward. There's more people that need water. It was nice to see you. I got to go. Bye. I helped you. I figured it out. I got you the water. So there is this kind of element of like, okay, how are we emotionally going to be able to nurture what we truly need in our lives that is going to be best for us, while at the same time moving forward without kind of holding on to things that, really are not serving us and not actually delivering us what we need 100%. And this is where it gets crazy. Okay? I'm going to tell you this. This is where it gets really crazy to me. The craziest part about this whole thing is when you think about this in a weird way, when you look at your desires, when you look at the things that you want right now, when you look at your true edge and your true desire and your true thirst, there are things in life we want, right? Oh, I want this, or ooh, I want to feel that in my life. But does it come with all of the goodies? Does it come with all the things? That's what Taurus is asking, right? Because there's this element of us needing to have to make sure that we're getting not only everything emotionally, but that we're also having something that is sustainable. Because it's one thing for me to, or it's a lot like a gambler or an addict or a sex addict or something. Like, you could get that quick bang in and out, bam, and get that instant, gratification of Scorpio, right? But then what happens? Like, is that let's take a sexual relationship. Like, is it going to turn into something that will sustain? Is it just going to be a Netflix and chill for a long time and then it kind of just fades away? Or is it just a day thing? Or is it a night thing? Or what is it all? And especially since Venus is retrograding in Scorpio during this time. And remember, this is a really weird full moon because Venus is in its detriment retrograding. The moon's in its exaltation. Uranus is in Taurus retrograding, now starting to oppose Venus retrograde and the sun in its fall position. So everything's kind of a little out of whack here, except the moon, which is like trying to stabilize and hold this and say, before everybody just throws things away or destroys everything, like I don't want to just let it go. But all these planets are trying to say hey, we've got needs, we've got desires, we need to move into a new direction. So this full moon in Taurus is kind of also having the squares to the node saying yeah, we're at a destiny point of shifting into a brighter light and to a letting go and a disconnection of the past. So there is this part of ourselves where we are literally looking at self-worth things that we have held on to, that we have held value in our consciousness, in our outer world, that maybe aren't just delivering the most best things for us. And you can look at this because when you go towards a desire in your life right now, and if it turns out crazy, weird events, random events, makes you feel like you're on a path that just makes you feel like you're in an almost insane world, it's pretty clear that that's not the place to go. Especially because Uranus is in semi-square still to Neptune. And we're going to have this for a while. Okay? This one's not going away. And so that brings up this unconscious parts of ourselves that want wild and erotic and crazy and new crazy vibes without maybe looking at, are they actually taking us to a weird, crazy world that is not sustainable and that sure is giving us that edge we need, but does it actually fulfill and create gold? I say gold because Taurus kind of does rule gold. It does rule this precious irons. It does rule, precious stones. It rules jewels. It rules emerald, the Emerald City. So we have to follow the yellow brick fucking road. I can't believe I'm saying this right now. Now I feel like I'm just like a total, I don't know what you call it, like a weirdo or something. But this is the yellow brick road to Emerald City, okay? And along the way, we can get distracted. We can get really distracted. But it's good. Some of the distractions are good. We need to find the Tin Man. We need to find the Scarecrow. We need to find the lion in our life. To remember our courage, to remember our brain, to remember, if we can truly immerse ourselves fully in being real. And I think that this is a point in our lives where we are a little bit like Dorothy, where we are in a weird world. And all we want to do is get to that home, which if you look at the future, especially in November, we are coming into massive energies coming back home. Venus back at home in retrograde, in Libra. Jupiter in Sagittarius at home. Saturn at home. These are major aspects coming home. And and Neptune at home. When you start looking at it, you're like, whoa, all the planets are coming home. And so as you're looking at your life right now at this moment, in this full moon, and the choices you have to where you want to go, this is about knowing to take the path that you know is the righteous place to a pure, beautiful, and divine with these this nodal activity making these major squares. This is the Wheel of Fortune in tarot. This is the World card in tarot. This is that moment. And it's going to happen with Venus retrograde as well. So we're getting these cards a bunch, back to back, spiritually on a true planetary level. So there's this need for us to actually realize we are going home, but we need to find that Emerald City, and we do need to make sure that we pick with Saturn and Capricorn sextiling the Sun this week, sextiling Venus retrograde, trining this full moon, that you pick the destination that, yes, it is about a destination towards work, towards destiny, and towards a responsibility of your desire and edge, instead of losing yourself into a kind of radicalized, intense, desirable way to get to Emerald City, or maybe even divert off and say, let's go to another world, like let's go to Waterworld or something. And we all know Waterworld kind of turned out like a weird place. Didn't do that well in the box office, but it was a cool movie, I thought, because there's a lot of jet skis in it. But the whole thing is, Emerald City is this place that we are all headed to in our lives. And we've got to stay on that yellow brick road towards the light, because in Scorpio, yes, it is the sign that rules the evolution to the highest light. It really does, through transcendence. But before we get to that light, we have to face all of our shadows, our deeper needs, our deeper wants, our deeper desires, our edge, our hungers, which some of them can be a little bit bad and not the best for us, especially with Venus retrograde in Scorpio, conjuncting the Sun on this opposition to the full moon in Taurus. There's a reminder here of quality over instant coffee. And instant coffee is okay, or, instant anything is okay. I mean, we'll go into some Scorpio language here. I mean, we'll go for it. It's like with women, right? Dildos work great, fast, but it's not like having authentic sex. So sex toys are kind of, Taurian, I guess you could say, right? Whereas like Scorpio can be like the real thing. But there is also a point to where there's other parts of Scorpio when you go to the real thing that we can go down darker corners into the real thing, right? Like affairs, or we can go into even crazier things. So we have to be careful with this energy, because there is responsibility with Saturn in Capricorn, Pluto in Capricorn, and that north node that knows it's about to enter, or that south node that knows it's about to enter Capricorn. And on top of it, the Saturn-Pluto conjunction is underway, as far as it's moving farther and farther towards this, or I should say closer, but we are moving into that closer space. So responsibility is a hard choice during these times when we want to be crazy. We want to be wild. And even with Leo as the north node, we kind of want our own happiness, and we kind of want it our own way, which I think is an important thing to pay attention to. But Saturn is dignified through all this. That's the one, and Neptune. And if we actually look at Saturn and Capricorn and these great aspects to this full moon and to the Sun and Venus this week, and we look at this Neptunian energy, which of course is at home, which Neptune in Pisces is ruling this higher spiritual, true ascension to God, to a purity sense of not getting caught up in our subconscious habits or patterns. And when you add the mix of Saturn, which is on its way towards its sextile to Neptune, which we've never seen in our life in their home signs, is the ultimate spiritual mission coming in 2019. So the choices that you make now are whether or not you meet your spiritual mission or not. This is very Neo in the Matrix, going to the architect and the choice that is upon us. And do we repeat the pattern of what we do and always go towards, you know, in the case of the movie, he always goes to save the world and ditches the love. But he did find a way to choose love and then choose to save everybody, but he also, I guess you could say, died. You know, I'm sorry to break it to the people who haven't watched The Matrix, but if you haven't watched The Matrix and you're in the spiritual world, I don't know what world you've been on, you know, because I think a lot of us woke up through The Matrix. But we are at that big point in our lives where spiritual mission overdoes these 3D repetitive patterns of thirst, hunger, and desire that we've experienced a million times before. I mean, honestly, it's kind of like masturbation. Like, masturbation's great. Don't get me wrong. It's wonderful. But the whole thing about it, though, is like, how many times do you do it until really it's kind of like, I mean, sure, it can be great every time. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, how many times do you keep doing it to where is it ever going to get any better until you have to start having to do some weird stuff like hit me on top of the head or like, I don't know, like choke me or something. Like, and then even after that, like how much farther do you go to where the 3D experience of, you know, this kind of just more physical need of, you know, especially for the fact that a lot of this is dealing with Scorpio, which is very root chakra-ish. It's like, how much root chakra really do we really need to experience until we realize there's really nothing left there to experience? Saturn and Neptune, which are really starting to come into their sextile because they know they're coming in as Saturn's been direct, but Neptune still is in retrograde. It's at 13 degrees and it's basically almost stopped. There's this spiritual mission brewing. And so it's like the choices that we need to start to make in our life that we need to be really concerned with is this desire really on alignment with my spiritual mission? Is it really going to be good for my spiritual mission? Or am I going to choose to fuck off a little bit and maybe put the spiritual mission kind of still first, but, you know, I know we all need breaks and we all need, you know, an ability to escape. We all need that, especially with Chiron and Pisces, Neptune and Pisces. But this is also about spiritual work of like overcoming patterns, overcoming habits, overcoming situations we've done a million times already, billion times, trillion times, infinity times, and getting out of cycles. And so all this Taurus energy is reminding us of, you know, remember what's important. Desires are great, but having something to build off of. And you've got to remember that Uranus is leaving Taurus in weeks, and it's coming into Aries. And guess what? We're going to finish this whole Aries story and finish our egos and finish what we want. So I think a lot of people are going to choose, maybe in the unconscious world, kind of the easier choice of kind of a primal desire. It's easy to pick that right now, really easy. But it's much harder to pick the spiritual mission, the overcoming of your battles, your habits, overcoming a lot of your things that you keep repeating all the time, and whether it's relationships or whether it's in how you just deal with your own self and your wants and your needs and your desires and even self-worth issues, and choosing a higher road here and using the Uranus and Aries to ramp up your strength of a higher road. Because guess what? Uranus comes back into Taurus at the end of the winter and into the spring of 2019, and it's there for 7 years, everyone. And Uranus is going to be like, yeah, like you better know this Taurus world, because if you don't understand Taurus world, well, then it doesn't sustain. Without Taurus, there is no garden. You got to remember that the sun, when it comes into Scorpio, officially, you know, is the middle of the fall, right? Or the spring if you're on the other side of the world. But what it is in Northern Hemisphere is the daylight is done, okay? It's basically going to be turning from more night than day. That's why Scorpio rules death. It is the point to where now you have to survive off the grains you harvested in Virgo and in Libra, where you basically started to weigh everything out and store everything and build alliances in case you run out of grain or you run out of food. This is how the world used to be. Why do you think Libra came around? It was like, I better be friends with Joe, and I better be in this relationship with Bob, and I better be in my marriage here, and I better have this so I can do this, because in case something happens in Scorpio, when it starts to get cold and it starts to snow and the leaves are changing and there's no way to just like go out and just go grab food, guess what? You better have some alliances. Because Scorpio is, things have come to a complete transformational point where the trees are no longer filled with leaves. Unless, I live in California, so it's very hard for me to tap into this energy because it's very weird here. Every day looks the same, and every palm tree is green, and we have green grass all the way through the whole year, 365 days a year. It's crazy. But at least I understand the story, and at least I've been to enough of the world to see what a fall looks like. And so, it is the energy where in ourselves, as we come into this, do we have alliances to help us survive? Do we have the ability to not overuse? Because in Scorpio too, right, we tend to go, okay, I got to survive, right? But with Saturn and Capricorn, it's like, use that edge, use that survival for a purpose. Don't just use it to just pleasure yourself. And especially a full moon in Taurus, with the sun in Scorpio and Venus retrograding over the sun, with the North Node in Leo and Aquarius, you want to talk about look at life as like there's Pleasure City just sitting right in front of you, just dangling the deepest carrot you've ever seen in your life. And it's like, is that really where I want to go? Because we can get really caught up in there. Maybe we need to dip our toes in there, or whether this even is a lot like the biblical story of Adam and Eve, and Eve kind of seducing Adam to and Lucifer, right? That's that whole story with the sun and Venus we can go into a million times, but there is a little bit of that seduction moment right here of like, well, maybe this looks a little bit better, without maybe looking at the true essence of the longevity, without looking at if this is going to take you off your mission, and whether or not this is really just a pattern, whether it's just a desire, and whether it's just something that honestly is really not truly fulfilling in the real world. Now, yes, the world is changing, and yes, we are changing the dynamics with Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn and what the whole world looks like, but this is a time for us to make sure that we are looking at that spiritual mission very carefully and knowing that that's what's going down, and to start setting us up so we can do our best work at that place, because that is so important in where we're at in the astrology right now. Now, the other big thing this week going on, of course, is Venus, of course, retrograding over the sun. This is the big shift point. This is also a big clarity point for us about understanding where these desires, understanding where these things are, but more importantly, also in relationship shifting, and Venus is heading towards its opposition towards Uranus by the end of this week. And so that is also bringing up a whole new direction, and Venus is about to square the nodes with this retrograde. So when it comes to Pleasure City, when it comes to relationships, we are having to do some major work and some major karmic work. And so this is a good time to do your karmic work, and this is a good time to look at your pleasure centers and to look at your desires and do your karmic work about if you're aligning in true heart or if you're aligning in just for some quick, crazy edge. This is also a time where Jupiter and Mercury will start to meet up this weekend in conjunction. Now, what's very interesting is I want you to look back at your life in a time capsule to the week of the first and second week of November of 2006. That was the last time we had Jupiter here. There's a lot of answers right now in looking back at your life in Scorpio season in 2006, 2010, 2014, and now. There's a connecting point to fear in all of those places, okay? And this is about us overcoming fear of truly being our sovereign, highest true authentic self that is transcending to be an eagle, a leader, one that can soar high, a phoenix that rises, and not stay as the scorpion with its stinger out. That's why, Scorpio gets a lot of characters. Everyone else doesn't get them. Because why do you think Halloween's in Scorpio? We all become different characters. But the eagle is the ultimate and has always been the one of Scorpio. Because when you are an eagle and you soar high and you are the one that is soaring and you show the way, you show that you are of integrity. You show that you have control of your hunger and thirst. You show that you know how to use it for good, that you know how to use it and change the world with it. And this has been a place that we are all afraid of our ability to truly do that fully. Because we have fears, we have our own pleasure centers that we have tried to like find that through, and that's all part of the story, so it's not bad. But after 6 years, after 35 freaking years, 34 years since Saturn and Pluto were in Scorpio, you'd think we'd finally consciously be at a point to where we've reached like, can we really harness this, control it, and use it to change the world? Or are we just going to go come in a fucking bucket and waste it all? The ladies do it another way, but I'll just keep the ladies out of this. And the reason why I say that is there's a reason why males especially, and especially before I race, I tell my wife, like, no sex, yo. Like, because I got to save my energy to be able to race and win and do good. Holding your energy sexually and your pleasure centers is the key to manifesting big time. Because that is the force that creates life. And just putting it in a bucket or down the toilet or on your sheets or in a fucking condom all the time is taking away, and I'm not saying that you can't have that all the time. Like, it's good to have that, and I'm not against all that shit. All I'm saying is this is where you start to realize, and I'm using this as a good analogy, do you know how to hold that shit into and use it in other ways? Especially while the biggest spiritual fucking mission of all time is showing up, finally. You want to talk about true tests? We are here. This is it. This is the ultimate test of Medusa, Succubus, or Incubus energy, and whether or not you are going to use all of your life-giving force and give it to pleasure centers that will not manifest the spiritual, godly mission that Lightworkers and people that are here for, and the greatest work that you've ever wanted to do in your life. Your choice is here. And it's not easy because with Saturn in Capricorn and Neptune in Pisces, there is a little bit of having to kind of conform and conform to spirituality and to a higher cause that's above our pleasure. And before we go in the charts, as we come into next week, that is Venus at the edge of the last degree of Scorpio, squaring the nodes, opposing Uranus, and that's going to ask you, are you going to do something with your life force? Because I've been talking for weeks, months, 6 freaking years about all this Scorpio energy. And whether we call it desire or edge, whatever you want to call it, especially mixed with all this Aquarius and Mars and Aquarius and Uranus, energy, right, that's going on. It's fun. Edge and darkness can be seductive as hell. But a higher cause and a higher purpose is something that life force, when it combines with that, raises you to a pleasure center that is unknowable until you get there. And that's how we rise out of these three-dimensional energies, is when people learn to transcend this stuff. And Venus will get back into Libra. I mean, this thing is going to shift fast, everybody. Halloween's definitely coming up. And this Halloween is about which character will you truly choose to wear in your soul, in your life. Now, the last thing that I want to say before we go into the charts is, as Mercury and Jupiter meet up, there is this deeper understanding and a message from the underworld to learn as Jupiter is going into Sag of transcendence, because as Mercury and Jupiter meet at 27 and Mercury moves to 28 and then Jupiter next week moves to 28, we enter the degrees in which we had the Saturn-Jupiter square in August of 2015, which there's another date there that is about, and you can look it up on my YouTube. I did a video called Light Reborn. And this is truly the light work that is either born or the light that is dimmed. Doesn't mean it's off, but dimmed. And so we have to make major choices now in understanding there's a message from the universe of whether we can control and find our power and use it for good and manifesting a new world, or dump it all in a fucking cum bucket, all while Jupiter will start to trine over to Chiron, as this is a massive healing of wounds that are not opened but have already closed and have already scabbed over. And whether or not you realize you're at the end of these wounds of fear and not using your life force correctly, and whether you look at this as just picking the scab up and it's over, or that you're still looking at it as a freaking wound. Let's go deep into the charts now. All righty, okay. I do have a pen somewhere here. I got it, all right. And of course, people love to know what I'm drinking. It's pretty standard lately. Powerade, my favorite flavor, Mountain Berry Blast. All right. There's a lot of talking there. But we're going to get right down to this and get quick through these charts. I know people got World Series to watch. I don't know what the score is right now. I don't want to know because I don't want to be upset for all you Boston fans out there if you Boston people are winning. I know you guys were winning right before I did this, but. All right, October 23rd, here we are. The first day of Scorpio. And I have to say, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but my Opa, which is my grandfather on my mom's side, who was an astrologer, by the way, and ran a TV repair shop here in Newport Beach on 15th Street for, I think, about 35 years, from Holland, was also captured by the Japanese in World War II as in the military for the Netherlands. I didn't even know my grandfather was an astrologer till he died when I was 18, until everybody told me and I got started into it. He did all the charts for my family and people and women and all this kind of things. And I didn't realize I had that lineage, but today is his birthday. And I just want to honor my ancestor today and thank him for passing the genealogy of astrology to me without even me knowing it till I was 18 and he died. And I want to honor his soul, and I want to honor him today. And he was a Scorpio. So also I think today's birthday is Johnny Carson's birthday. But Johnny Carson off of Astro.com says that he's a AA rated as a 29 Libra, which kind of makes a little sense to me about the way that he did. But he had a lot of Scorpio. He had Scorpio rising too. And you know, it was something interesting about Johnny Carson and how, you know, he'd get on a show and he'd smoke a bunch, right? And he'd tell jokes and he'd laugh. And he started in TV really, really young. But, you know, once he got on the Tonight Show and made that whole show, you know, he'd like run back to his house and just wouldn't leave his house and then just go back to the show, smoke a bunch, and he liked to retreat a lot. And so, you know, he kind of played this really unique role. But October 23rd is a very unique day, and I just wanted to bring up some people there. But here we are, the Sun opposing Uranus. We talked about this earlier, this reinvention or new look, or forcing to go higher into better worlds. You know, Taurus is quality. Taurus rules money. It rules possessions. It rules self-worth. We need to rise to having a better life in new directions and new dimensions, right? New platforms. This is how Uranus works. Keep rising higher and keep going to the top. And the Sun in Scorpio is trying to also integrate and say, hey, I do got these pleasure centers, but as I've been telling you all today, this is more than a pleasure center. This is a life force. Scorpio brings life. Even look at that freaking dick up. And so, and even though it's technically a feminine sign, it has a very masculine quality too. It's more of the the masculine side of the feminine. And then there's like, you know, in masculine sign, more of the feminine is Libra. You know what I mean? So that's why Mars is at detriment here and Mars is at home in Scorpio. But it's trying, how do we bring this life force, whether you call it edge, determination, our desires, how do we bring that to a higher form in our life without getting caught up, especially because of this Neptune angle, right? Because Neptune technically is making a very odd angle over to the Sun. And Neptune is making a very weird semi-square to Uranus. I think this Sussy square here, yeah, it is Sussy square. You know, this is where it's like subconscious patterns of escapism in desire is definitely not the place to go. No, 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 no. And it's easy to get caught up into that. So I'm just putting the warnings out there. Pleasure City looks great. I'm going for Life Force City with big spiritual mission. And let's look at that spiritual mission, right? Saturn in Capricorn. Look at this, Neptune, even though it's coming direct November 25th. Remember that, November 25th, okay? Saturn is now within 10 degrees again. And Saturn's moving fast and forward. And Saturn at the very beginning of the year will be right there at 14, right when Neptune's there. And we'll be making the sextile. And that is like the holy grail. Like Saturn in its home sign of determination of a long-term achievement and willpower to get to the highest purpose and destiny, while Neptune's sextiling in its home sign of a higher spiritual good. Like that is the grail quest of the light work, the ultimate quest of godly service. And that's why I think it's so important as we make these radical choices in our life to pick the best road and to stay on the Yellow Brick Road to Emerald City and not get distracted off these sleazy, easy, you know, Uranian, South Node, Scorpio kind of stories of like, oh, that looks exciting, that looks edgy, that looks fun, let me get off there. And, you know, Emerald City looks like it's boring and yeah, it's beautiful, but I'm looking for, where's the fucking, the porn mags? Where's the fucking craziness, you know? Like, it kind of reminds me of Quentin Tarantino's, what's that movie, Craig, when they go to the, with George Clooney and they go to the, that whorehouse and it's full of vampires? And he was even in it, too. I forgot, From Dusk Till Dawn. This is where you might go from Emerald fucking City to From Dusk Till Dawn, and it might look like a fun time, but those hot chicks turn into vampires. Ah! Like, you know what I mean? So We do not want to go down that road. I don't know if you've seen From Dusk Till Dawn. Maybe everybody should watch From Dusk Till Dawn. Or I should throw a Dusk Till Dawn party here at 12th House Media, Leo King Studios, and High Vibe Studios, because literally, if you watch that movie, that is a choice that is on your table right now and looks like a better choice than Emerald City. Let's go to the real big stuff here, which is the full moon. On the 24th, 9:45 a.m. Pacific, so it's happening at 12:45 p.m. Eastern. So that sun at 1 degrees, and look at Venus, right? Venus at 4. But let's look at these nodes, right? And by the way, these charts are brought to you by Astro Gold. Make sure that you get to Astro Gold, find Astro Gold on iPhone, iPad, or make sure that you find them, if you got PC, on SolarFire at Alabe. But basically, Astro Gold is the shiznick. So look at this big fixed cross. Wow, in the full moon, okay? And there's the full moon in Taurus on top of Uranus, forcing us to emotionally let go, but also it is a moon exalted saying, you know, like, I know that you want edge and everything, but is it really worth it? And is it of the heavenly bodies? Now, I got to bring up the heavenly bodies because what are the fixed star system that is over in Taurus, which is the Pleiades, okay? The seven sisters. And what is the star, the fixed star, that is over in Scorpio? Now, I'm looking in sidereal right now, okay? Technically, it's 9, you know, Sag. But it's Antaurus, okay? And then we've got the big boy over here, too, in opposition at 9 Gemini, too. But anyway, so long story short, are we going to let this big, huge root chakra and life force be used to do crazy? Erotic? This brings up eroticism a lot. I mean, this literally is where, especially since Venus is retrograde, where people are like kind of like broke. Maybe they do something crazy, like, I don't know, become something crazy. I don't know, or they do crazy things. I mean, we'll use examples, but I don't think it's bad. I'm just saying, like, I don't know, maybe they do become a porn star. Or maybe they do become like a drug dealer, right? Like, or maybe they do like become a madame. I don't know. Like, but that is this energy very intensely. And this moon Uranus, yes, it wants edge, but it needs it in a place that's not going to demolish things, because the seven sisters in Taurus reminds us that there is a collective group of light. And that collective group of light needs to come together to create the same amount of power that's in opposition to Antaurus and some of the stars over there in Scorpio. Now, even though I'm using more sidereal in the understanding of it, this is where we actually understand the ideas behind Taurus and Scorpio and the fixed signs, believe it or not. So, do we then choose a high road of Regulus, even though Regulus is the fixed star at 29. There's some other stars over here in Leo. But this is this main aspect of because Leo rules royalty. Now, I know that that is a trigger word for some people, but when you mix Leo and Taurus, which definitely are the ones to pay attention to, because the sun right now is in Scorpio. The sun doesn't mind Scorpio too much, not like it's at a horrible position or anything. But it is a north node in Leo, so the sun is important to focus on in Scorpio. To use the life force for what? This exalted moon in Taurus, which Taurus in Leo is royalty mixed with quality, which what do you get when you get that? You get this, it's like cotillion. It's kind of like, if you watch how the royal family works, it's like you walk a certain way, you dress a certain way, you present things a certain way, you eat you know, you don't just do soup like this. Like you literally take your spoon and you rub it on the back of the bowl and you eat it. And there is this elegance, that's the word I'm looking for. It's elegance against erotic. It's rebellion against love. And we're seeing it politically, we're seeing it everywhere, and you have to be the determinant of what you feel is rebellion and love. I mean, we can look at it from both angles. I'm not going to get political on anyone here. Some people think I get political. I don't. But that's where you have to see it. Where is there people acting in elegance and in love, and where are people acting in erotic and rebellious behavior? And we have a huge opposition here that you wouldn't normally see through looking at astrology this way unless you kind of go deeper. And this is the choice that's come up on this full moon is, are you choosing elegant and love, or are you choosing erotic behavior mixed with rebellion? Which I'm going to tell you, if you pick the erotic rebellion, it will not last. I know, because I've experienced that plenty of times in my fucking life, and it just doesn't, and especially since the South Node is here in Aquarius, it ain't going to pan out. Especially with Saturn. Look at this. On the full moon, Saturn's at 422. Look at this. Venus, 415. Exact sextile. Booyah. You want to talk about responsibility with picking your battles, with your desires, your wants, your life force, your relationships, like ones that are on the same path as you, or are you going to go with ones that are on a totally different path, don't even go in the same direction, and take you to just this quick, erotic, kind of rebellious place that you think is exciting and cool and everything, but the truth is, it's actually not on the path, and again, you're ending up into that dusk till dawn situation. You don't want to fucking go there. Let's move on from the full moon, and let's go to the 25th, which is the getting prepared for the Sun-Venus conjunction, which actually doesn't happen until early Friday morning on the West Coast. But really, after this full moon, we're not done. The moon in exaltation in Taurus will square Mars. Now, why is this important? Because Mars, when it's in Taurus, is at detriment, and Mars would right, you know, the moon, you know, it's like the moon is squaring in its exaltation and asking Mars, like, hey, will you not be too crazy with your ego, with your drive to make sure we can emotionally create something good? And Mars is kind of pissed, you know, like no, you know, like there's a battle here of our emotions and our ego with the Sun and Venus kind of trying to push for that erotic, wild road. So this is where we have to put our egos on major check. And some people think it's like ego, like centric, but it's more like unconscious ego towards thinking that that erotic road or that, you know, kind of radical, edgy road is going to be great. But that moon is more stronger in Taurus, and it knows that a stabilized, elegant, beautiful place is where to put things, even though it goes against Mars's, you know, kind of erotic behavior and crazy behavior in Aquarius with the South Node there, and more importantly, as it still is in some weird aspects, it's actually making a semi-square to Saturn of not wanting to do anything responsible at all. At all. And forgetting about the mission. Mars is running like a fucking crazy motherfucker. So, I think it's important to look at this square and know that, especially with the T-square happening, the moon opposing this Mercury-Jupiter, like we need to look into some sense here. And with Jupiter in Scorpio, even though it's almost home, it's like, okay, I'm trying to understand this whole underworld thing, and I'm trying to understand like what you need and what you want. I mean, I know how to get you there, but I do gotta like listen to the moon, which is exalted, because Jupiter's smart enough to listen to everybody. I don't know a Sag that will not walk into a room and not talk to everybody. Like a Sag will talk to everybody. Like Sages will open up to everybody. So when Jupiter's in Scorpio, it literally is like, hey, listen, okay, it's literally talking to all the demons, it's talking to all the underworld people, it's talking to the people in purgatory, it's talking to Lucifer, it's like trying to understand, what do you guys all need, what's the deal? I kind of just like want to know to experience it, that's Sag. But it's got to listen to this moon in exaltation. Go, let me hear from what the moon has to say in Taurus. What does the moon have to say? And the moon is saying, listen, elegance and a thing, bring the right desires there and meet it with elegance. Bring your dark and mix it with the light in the right way, and things can really happen. And maybe we can get that excitement that we want in an elegant and beautiful way. But if you're not somebody who can see that or doesn't want to put the work in, or who just kind of wants to just rebel against the world and rebel against society and rebel against the way things are and rebel against the structures of the world, which are toppling on their own, just off the astrology and trusting in the universe a little bit and not being so scared of people and what they're doing out there politically and in the world. Like, this is a place for you to get into your ultimate elegance and your ultimate light, because holding that and more people holding that will create a world of that right now. So Thursday could be volatile. I'm not joking either. I mean, with this Sun-Venus element, with, you know, Mars not really wanting to listen to the moon, because it kind of laughs and goes, why would I listen to you? Whenever I'm in your sign, I don't do shit. You know what I mean? I don't get crap done. It takes me forever. And the moon's just trying to say, hey, listen, I emotionally know what is a comfortable place. Like, where you want to go is not comfortable. Where you want to go is not righteous. Where you want to go is not going to take you very far that you think you're going to go. You're going to end up in a weird world. Good luck to you. So watch your motives, watch your desires, watch your sexual desires during this week, especially with this moon square, because it's about containing things and building things, opposed to dropping it in the bucket. We'll just keep it to that now. It might be children watching. They probably still don't know what that means. Okay, so Friday we have the Sun-Venus conjunction finally. All right. It's going to happen at 3 degrees, which actually is a great degree because why? Saturn is sextiling it. So again, as we make the pass of the Sun-Venus conjunction, and every time a Sun-Venus conjunction happens, it reminds me of the one in June of 2012 when we saw the Venus eclipse, which we won't see for 100 more years, but I remember looking at my life, and it was actually while I was doing the beginnings of this work and my YouTube videos every day. And I remember because it happened in my 10th house, and it was a time in my life where I really understood what I needed to do to redefine my look, redefine the relationships I was around, redefine my self-worth, redefine what I'm using my creative energy for towards being better. And that's what Venus retrogrades are over the sun, is redefining and relooking at who is best for me, where can I step up to the plate to betterness, where can I use my worth better. But in Scorpio, it's a little difficult because Venus is actually detriment here. So there's a part of us that needs to really look at this detriment aspect and go, you know, there is parts of ourself that are desirable but might not lead to the right place. So we need to find those desires that are leading to a right place, and they're there and possible. Although it can sometimes feel like, God, that's a little bit of work. or, oh gosh, that's a little bit sobering. But sobering is good, especially because with Neptune in Pisces and Chiron in Pisces, and now this trine starting to happen with Chiron to Jupiter and Mercury, you know, it's Jupiter and Mercury are going to realize, like, in order to heal, we just can't escape to some crazy places all the time. We have to have some sort of understanding, and we need to stop looking at wounds as wounds and start looking at them as scabs that are falling off. And once we do that, maybe we can actually heal ourselves fully. Instead of looking like these gaping holes that are missing out of our life, or something's not fulfilling me fully. But, you know, I mean, there are things in life that we are going to have to let go of. And that's Chiron also talking in Pisces. But that's when you can't find a true and fair and a true connected to the same spiritual mission. It's not going to work. Whether that's a relationship, a job, that's where this is saying. If it's not on that path, that's not going to work. That's what Saturn is saying in the responsibility factor to the Sun Venus. It's actually containing it and trying to tell it, listen, if you follow the ultimate path, if you follow it, I will deliver you the glory of the highest of the spiritual, wherever you want to call it, dimensions or places. Interesting, though, too, that moon is in Taurus. At the exact same time, it's on the star Algol, 26. They call this the demon star. Although if you're on spirituality and you're on the higher realms, the demon Algol, okay? That the Sun and Venus, that the exact conjunction point is the moon on Algol. Look that up. That's violence, that's kind of crazy deaths too, beheadings, weird stuff. But a lot of it is, if you're on a higher spiritual channel, if you're connected to the higher spiritual frequencies, you don't let the demon kind of take over and you step into the higher realms of that seven sisters and you step into a higher realm, because the ultimate lesson of Algol is to transcend the demon of greed, the demon of, you know, deep desire. And with this Venus retrograde Luciferian effect of this aspect, especially with Saturn and Capricorn, there's a Saturn and Capricorn aspect of Lucifer, and then there's a Saturn and Capricorn aspect of this higher, more, you know, I guess you could say, tailored and dignified, you know, responsible, higher up. So we have a very big choice of the dark or the light during this week. And I think that the Libra energy was weighing that out over the last month a lot. And I think a lot of us have kind of made our choices here, and we have a chance this week to either transcend this demonic vibe. I'll just say it. I mean, there's no, look at this fucking chart. I mean, 29 or 26 degrees. I mean, literally on the star, on Algol, the demon star, the exact same time that Venus is going to be coming back at 3 degrees with Saturn trying to keep it together or give it the power of that dark side or not. This is Luke turning into Darth Vader. Ah! I might scare people. It's Halloween time. Also, what's interesting to me, too, is this semi-sextile here between Pluto and Mars, right? Within 30 degrees. And this one is interesting. It's interesting there's nothing at 18, but there is this, well, I mean, we could look at 18 degrees Taurus here as kind of this midpoint, as the square to these and the trine to it. But I think that there's a part of us that right now with Mars and Pluto in this, oh, look at that. The midpoint is the nodes of Mars and Pluto's semi-sextile. That choosing our deeper needs of erotic, wild, intense, crazy energy that we can't control will not get us to the ultimate hierarchy of love. On this day, October 26th, the North Node is at 0 Leo. I know this degree well because you all know I'm a 0 Leo sun. But in understanding what 0 Leo is, 0 Leo is the blood rushing from the head of somebody over somebody's body, and it's the blood, it's the passion, it's the love, it's the full immersion in heartfelt intensity of true love and pouring of the heart out. That's the Sabian symbol for 0 degree Leo, which is actually technically 1. Look up Sabian symbol 1 Leo. Look up Sabian symbol 1 Aquarius, the opposite of that. I won't even give you the answer. But you have a choice this week. It's all over the place. I cannot make this crap up. Show me an astrologer that showed you this, please. Please. Please, somebody show me that. I really want to see it, you know? It almost looks like a nutsack. But with the South Node, and let's go back real quick, the South Node is the South. It's so much easier to fall into the trap of Mars-Pluto desires, especially with Sun-Venus desires and detriment, and especially with the moon on the demon star Algol. I mean, it might sound crazy, but like on October 26th, you have a choice. And look at all these aspects to the North Node, right? The squares, the moon sextiling it later that day, Uranus squaring it, you know, Chiron's trining it, you know, the Ceci square from Neptune. I mean, the trines from now, Jupiter starting. Like, it's all pointing towards this last moment here of like either the ultimate love and ascending to heart energy, or falling into the deepest traps of radicalism and demonic, erotic rebellion. And this week we just might see in the world it play out. And I know, you know, it's not that October 26th is a bad day. It actually, to me, is like one of the holiest days of the week, because it is the ultimate choice of healing wounds fully, choosing love, transcending to a higher place emotionally, starting to see a bigger picture in life towards achieving what you want, and letting go of old desires and patterns that are not truly allowing us to be happy. And this weekend, things kind of split off. The Sun and Venus split off, but then the Sun will sextile Saturn. So with the Sun-Saturn sextile, it's like the choice is pretty much made by this weekend. The Moon is squaring over to Neptune. So there is a little bit of like, don't be emotionally confused. Focus on the long-term goals. Don't question and doubt your choices and get lost in the abyss. You know after this week where you should be aligning with, okay? Now when we get to Sunday, here comes Venus, 1 degree, Mars now at 19, and you got to remember, we're going to go back 1 second. You guys are going to blow your minds on the 26th. Where was the eclipse in Leo this year? It was at 18 degrees of motherfucking Leo, okay? Where is Mars at? We're going to have to pull out my eraser. Motherfucking 18 degrees of Aquarius. Oh my gosh. Is that really true? That we are at finally the point where we are at an opposition to whether our egos will go against, where the solar eclipse is trying to set the bar to the ultimate highest love, and will we destroy it and rebel against it and go into our craziness and radical directions and think that we are more genius than love and that we can ascend love by our minds and desires instead of using the life force of bringing love in the world? Exactly, Mars is opposing 18 degrees Leo during that Venus, during that whole damn Friday. So Sunday things get much, well, not much easier, but at least Mars is off that. The moon's in Cancer in its home sign, but that means it's making oppositions to Saturn. So again, not only will you question things this weekend, but then emotionally realizing that things do take work, and you know, you might feel like, did I miss a boat to crazy dawn of dusk till dawn? Everybody looks really exciting on that boat. Everybody looks like they're having a great time. The vampires haven't come out yet, though. And this is where we kind of have to learn this sobering element with the moon sextiling Uranus, with Uranus starting to oppose Venus, of the reminder that there is a better, higher quality world for us out there. And choosing a higher road. And with Jupiter and Mercury, this is, and especially with the trine to Chiron starting, this is the understandings of repairing a beautiful spiritual life or looking way too big at the lower degrees of Scorpio and applying that to escapism and thinking it's okay to escape fully. Last day here is Monday, the 29th. And what do we got? Mercury at 28 degrees. This is where the Saturn, Jupiter square was. So Saturn was here in August of 2015. Jupiter was in Leo at 28 when they squared. So the fact that Jupiter and Mercury are starting to come into this space is trying to repair a lot of things here. Repairing again to November, I think it was about November 10th of 2006. We're repairing with the Venus retrograde stuff going on here, you know, November of 2010, but it was mainly, I think, a little bit more of October. And then we are repairing October 23rd through November, that whole Scorpio season of 2014 through the eclipse season, and then now we're here at the 2018. And there's a lot of other Scorpio stuff, but we're at a huge 12-year with the 6-year cycle from the last 6 years of Saturn, and then you go back to the 34 years of Saturn, Pluto in 84, that this is all coming to some major completion and major zones here this next week and a half. And so we end this week with, can we overcome these fears of truly immersing into true love? Can we overcome these fears of the things that have rattled our souls and find our life force and step forward into these higher missions, these spiritual missions, these quests that are asking of us? Here's the North Node and teetering still at 0 degree, getting ready to come into Cancer. This is a major nodal shift on the way coming into next week, with Venus entering back into its home sign of Libra, with Venus getting ready to oppose Uranus exactly, coming on Halloween. It is all coming down. It is all coming down to the zone in life where we are at this major, major, major choice of the dark, and the light. And like no other, all of the experiences you have been through, for some of you, since 1984, for others, really got potent in 2006, okay? Are you ready to choose the highest road of light? Or will you choose going back to play the same 12-year journey again? Some deep shit. But that's why we're on Deep Astrology. So, thank you so much for being here. My magazine comes out October 30th in stores everywhere that sells magazines in America and Canada. Yes, a digital version is available. I will be putting up links for that soon. But October 30th at Barnes & Noble, Walmart, everywhere. It's going to be called the Leo King 2019 Astrology Guide Mag. That thing is coming out. I'm super stoked for that. So next week, during that Venus crazy opposition and with the nodes and all that stuff, I can't even believe it, with Jupiter opposing my moon and everything, it's crazy. And Saturn on my Jupiter. Exact. Crazy. Venus retrograde videos are on sale. I put them off for 25% off since we're halfway through. So make sure that you go to inclusiveastrology.com if you want to find out how this Venus retrograde, we're only halfway through. There is still all the way till November 16th that we have this Venus retrograde going on, and there's a lot still to go on, as you can see, and it's not over yet. So if you want to find out how all this is affecting you and your sun sign or your rising sign or your moon, pick on the drop-down menu, go to inclusiveastrology.com. And I'm still doing readings, but we don't have a reading sale. The reading sale just ended. And what else? I hope you all see this, including I have to see it in myself, right? Like, I hope we all choose the right light, and I hope that we all don't end up in the dusk till dawn story. And I hope we all do end up in Emerald City, because there is a glimmer of a higher place for us to go that will fulfill us. And that fulfillment comes with the ultimate achievement of the highest spiritual good. Can you accept that as your edge? Or are we going to continue down typical edgy roads that we've all, some of you maybe have never experienced them and need to. Maybe that's what this energy is for, to maybe wake you up. Some people aren't awake yet, so maybe that's the road they're going to go down. So don't judge them for going down that road. But for those awake, those that have been waiting, those that are light workers, those that are here on the mark, ready to go, this is where we have to make that tough choice. Where do we go towards that pleasure city, or do we go towards the highest spiritual good and using this life force energy for manifesting a brighter world? Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for being a part of futurelife.tv, where you can get and watch these videos every day, my daily videos, my sun sign horoscope videos, my weekly tarot, weekly intuitive, and so much more. Remember, this show will be moving there after the Venus retrograde. So, we got some time, and there's a Mercury retrograde. So, I don't know when it's going to be, but you guys got some time. And I'm also bringing out some new shows starting by the end of this week, beginning of next week, that will be replacing this, but I'm still going to be playing this show for a while on here. So I'm not going anywhere, so relax. And I got other shows coming out, so I always replace a show with a new show. Just so you all know, this is the third show to move to my app. The dailies were on here for 3 years every day. The Uncut was on here for years every day. This show was on here all year, every week. And I move them to the app and I bring up a new show. So don't worry, I'll still be here. But I am moving everything to a horoscope world because censorship has begun. And that's for another conversation later. Thanks so much for all your support. I truly appreciate it. And I will see you all later.